I always say this, that, the power of a constituent is power that a DC lobbyist can never replicate. And really, it's our opportunity to share our story, the role that we play as pest management professionals in protecting public health, food safety, and property.
Hello, everyone. Welcome out to another episode of the PMP Industry Insider Podcast, where we take a look at what is changing in the pest and lawn industries, and we take you to the front lines, to those that are driving those changes. I'm Donnie Shelton, owner of Triangle Home Services, which has Triangle Pest as well as Triangle Lawn. And with me is the maestro. Hang on, what did AI call you? The good one, not the bad one, because I've got lots of funny AI names for you, but we'll just go with
the maestro of finance.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. Dan Gore, Dan, would you like to say good morning, introduce yourself, our guests, our topic, and our sponsors?
So this is going to be a good one. So good morning, Dan Gordon, BCO Bookkeepers, M&A specialists. We do back office bookkeeping, CFO work, and exit planning for the pest and lawn industry. And before I talk, well, geez, I'm out of order already. We have to talk about our
one job, Dan. One
job. I get one job, and I screw that up. So, our guests today. We'd like to introduce our guest and our topic. So, guests today are Andrew Architect, COO, and Megan Striegel, Senior Director of Public Policy from NPMA. And what we're going to be talking about is probably the most important NPMA event all year. It's not the biggest, but it's the most important. And that is Legislative Day. And we're going to talk about what goes on there and why you should attend, with a special focus on pesticide or state pesticide preemption. So before we do that, let's hear from our sponsors. So our first sponsor, as always, Coalmarch. If you're interested in digital marketing and you're looking to grow your business, that would be coalmarch.com. If you want your first month free, go to coalmarch.com/podcasts. And for more than 40 years, PestSure has been protecting pest control companies with specialized insurance and safety programs. Nobody understands our industry better. That's pestsure.com. And the two more, Voice for Pest. They deliver phone solutions specifically designed for pest and lawn care, from powerful AI features to deep integrations with most of the industry CRMs. Learn more at voiceforpest.com/podcast. And our newest and bestest for now sponsor is one of the leading distributors in the industry. That would be Forshaw. They are a family business since 1961. And what's pretty cool is their inventory management system called Foresight. And it's built to bring clarity, control inventory, and support smarter operations and decision making. And I know that that Triangle uses that. And as much as you try to make Donnie makes smarter decisions and whatnot, it doesn't always happen.
Well, support helps. A lot of support.
Yes. You can lead the horse to water. So, and if you're interested in joining one of our peer groups, we'd love to have you. Industry veteran David Billingsley facilitates those, and go back to episode 238 to listen to how that all works. And without further ado, let's get into it. And Donnie, why don't you start with the questions?
Yeah. Well, listen, first of all, welcome, Andy. Welcome, Megan. Glad you guys are here. I am glad that we were able to make an episode work to talk about Legislative Day. I think it is, it's one of my favorite conferences. There's a lot of important issues that are facing the industry. And obviously we thought for our listeners, it'd be great to do an episode just to talk a little bit about what Legislative Day is, how important it is for the industry, and really kind of some of the recent issues that NPMA is working with. But before we do that, I'm not going to tell a lot of funny stories about Andy Architect, because I used to work with him quite a bit when I worked for the state association back when he was doing that. And this is my first time meeting Megan. So why don't you guys, just for our listeners, give a quick brief background about yourself and then kind of what you're doing at NPMA. We'll start with you, Andy.
Cool. Well, thank you, Dan and Donnie, D squared. And thank you to all the sponsors, but really appreciate you guys having us on this morning. So I'm Andy Architect, the Chief Operating Officer for NPMA. So I think what that entails is I change the toilet paper rolls every Friday and then usually sweep out the garage Tuesday mid-mornings. But started working for NPMA 20 years ago. So I answered a advertisement, and I had no idea who the pest control industry was. I was working in private equity at the time, and they kind of sold me on here's what the job is, but the real hook was the association's holding its annual convention in Honolulu that year. So
Oh, there you go.
telling the girl I was dating at the time that, I don't know what these bug guys do or what the job really is, but I'll get a free trip out to Hawaii. I got just enough
Right.
points to bring you along with me afterwards.
That's
And then I'll
right.
come back home and I'll find a real job. So 20 years has gone by. I think I've
Go ahead and
kind of
find a real
realized
job.
two things. I mean, I'm not qualified to probably work anyplace else, number one. But number two, it's just a really cool industry. So, I mean, coming from private equity over here, competitors were talking to each other, people were sharing things, and it's, kind of been that way ever since. So it's a fun industry, and hopefully they will keep me around for the next 20.
Good. 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 How about you, Miss Megan?
Yeah. Unfortunately, joining NPMA, my first year, we did not go to Hawaii, but instead we went to Colorado. So a little less exciting. But in my role as Senior Director for Public Policy, I really lead on our strategy to address issues of interest to the pest management industry, both at the federal and state level. So at the federal level, that's engaging through Congress, the agencies, and also White House. And then really, we're a small team. We've got three of us, and then Andy weighs in here and there. But we punch above our weight class, and that's thanks to the volunteers in the states. Like, Donna, your previous experience at the state associations, you understand that really without the volunteers at the state level, we wouldn't be able to be as successful as we are on behalf of the industry. And then before NPMA, I led grassroots initiatives and federal government relations at RISE, Responsible Industry for a Sound Environment, and then served in EPA as a special senior assistant to the EPA Agriculture Advisor. So that's a bit of my background.
Wow, very well decorated.
Yeah.
Before we go on, Andy, I have a funny story about Hawaii too. So we have a client out in Hawaii, and he wanted to do an acquisition. So he called me up and he said, "Hey, can you come out here and help me do due diligence?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I told my wife I was going to Hawaii to do some due diligence. And she said, "I'm going too." And I said,
You needed a consultant to go
"Well,
with you.
no." She
Yeah.
said, I said, "Well, you're going to help me with due diligence." And she said, "Absolutely." And I said, "What's due diligence?" And she said, "A trip to Hawaii." So that was
Due diligence about how to properly ride a surfboard, I think.
exactly. So,
Oh goodness. Well, hey, listen. I think we're all aware of the sense of unity and the lack of polarization in Washington. So for those that have not attended NPMA's legislative day before, do you guys want to just give kind of an overview of why this is such a critical role for our industry, and no matter where you're at in the country? Can you guys just kind of talk through that a little bit? Like, why would someone want to attend, and why is it important?
Yeah. And I think both of you, in kind of the introduction of talking about Legislative Day, most important event, favorite conference, I think it's really unique. Obviously, a lot of our other conferences within NPMA bounce around the country. So folks might be able to go to Pest World one year, but not be able to, justify jumping across the country. But the really unique thing about our Legislative Day conference is, it's every single year we're bringing our members to Washington, D.C., and it's our opportunity to really show up in person to Capitol Hill. And it really, brings so much value to have NPMA members in those conversations with lawmakers and their staff. I always say this, that, the power of a constituent is power that a DC lobbyist can never replicate. And really, it's our opportunity to share our story, the role that we play as pest management professionals in protecting public health, food safety, and property. I think too, with the situation that DC is in and the place that our politics have arrived in, it makes the real world issues shift from being like a hearing it from a national association to hearing it from their constituents and hearing it from possibly their neighbors or folks that are servicing homes, schools, and businesses in their communities. It just has more of an impact to hear it from our members. That makes our Legislative Day conference so critical for our industry. What's happening? Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, just real quick, can you explain briefly, because I think it's pretty unique what you guys do. Like folks that go to
how does the program work?
I was going to say, like, they actually go to the Hill, right? A lot of people don't know that.
I think for the last 17 years I've been in it. It's unbelievable. It's really cool.
Yeah, I was going to add, I think what's unique about Legislative Day is you do Pest World and there's 600 competing events. There's an exhibit hall, there's, 8 concurrent session blocks, there's just a lot of side meetings. You go to, regional meetings, academy. There's a lot going on and you can't attend everything as an attendee. So the nice part about Legislative Day is the cadence is just a little bit slower. So you show up there if you want to attend the NPMA board meeting, which takes place on Saturday. Then Sunday is all the committee meetings, and the committee meetings are, intentionally scheduled so they're not really overlapping each other. So if you have an interest in attending, whether you do or don't serve on a committee, you're always welcome to see what business development, workforce, technical fumigation is up to. And then the nice part about Mondays, it's really general session. So we have kind of the kickoff in the morning. We have a big lunch general session. Typically, it's a debate between, people from either camp in Washington, which is a lot of fun because you get to hear what each person's perspective is. The nice part is that the, audience is 100% happy and 100% unhappy at the same time.
I remember it was just a few years ago where both parties agreed, and it wasn't.
That was the strangest thing. Yeah, and it wasn't something that was premeditated.
It wasn't televised.
You'll see the people in the room nodding their heads and, unnodding their heads at the, same time based on whatever talking head is up there that they most agree with. And it's gotten a little bit harder with current administration. So where it used to be, you either like the Democrat or you like the Republican. Now there's kind of 4 camps. So you either like, the pro or, anti-MAGA Republican, and you do or don't like, the more social or less social Democrat. So it's kind of a little bit more gradient. It's not as black and white. And then we have a final session in the afternoon. And then Tuesday, it's really just a general session in the morning. And then everybody heads up to Capitol Hill afterwards to visit their congressional and Senate representatives. So it's, a nice meeting in the sense that you have a lot of time to network, to kind of spend with colleagues, to attend all the meetings that you'd like to attend. And then it culminates in everybody actually getting to go up and tell their stories in front of their elected leaders.
So what happens when you go up? I'm sorry, because I don't want to lose this thought. What happens when you go into your groups? Like, geez, I've never been to legislate. I'm going to go up to the Hill. What am I going to say? How do you make everybody, effective, most effective?
Yeah, I was going to just jump in and say, I think something that's really unique too with the conference flow is there's so much time that's set aside to talk about the issues that we're going to be taking to the Hill, for folks to ask questions, to hear from other individuals that have been coming to Legislative Day for, years. And from that, it all accumulates into, after that general session on Monday, we have our state caucus time. So everyone gets into the groups that are going to be taking the Hill meetings together, and they're able to talk through what the meeting flow is going to look like, who's talking on what who's talking in which meeting. And really also just so they know they're not going in alone, which I think eases anybody for a first timer to know that they're not going to be walking into these offices alone, that they have, a team.
You're broken into your state and you go to your state legislator, and then you're given a folder with talking points so that so so that everybody knows, so that you don't go and say, geez, I don't know anything about this. Just showing up is the first step.
And then realize, it's intimidating to, walk into the nation's capital and sit in front of somebody, who was elected from your district, or, somebody who works for their office. So we do a Legislative Day first timers briefing on Sunday evening. And I mean, it's been growing. So Legislative Day, typically attracted about 280 to 300 people. We just got the numbers we start tracking about 10 weeks out. And it looks like we'll have, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 425 to
Wow.
450 this year. So the last 3, 4 years, I think there's been about 30 people in the first timers orientation. And a lot of that is just making sure that people feel comfortable that, hey, when you go up to the Hill, you talk to, somebody that's an elected leader from your state, your district, that you can feel good that, at the end of the day, they're a person and they want to hear from you.
The other thing I was going to say too, I mean, many years ago now, but I mean, I brought my family and it was a whole program that the family could do and learn all. I mean, it's just a great little,
Oh,
if
for the
you think
kids,
about
it's
Kevin,
learn how
yeah,
government
they have a nice
does
program
it.
for that as well. So
I,
you can
I,
learn
I
a
hate
lot about.
to get off track. It's the hardest job that there is. So it was my second year at NPMA, and the lady who kind of administered the program, her mother-in-law had passed away. So she said,
Uh-huh.
"I'm sorry, I got to to go up to New York and kind of deal with funeral arrangements. Like, hey, Andy, you're the new guy. Can you take over the kids program?" So, I mean, next morning I'm with 25 kids, trying to get into the White House. And I hadn't been, sort of pre-screened. So they
Uh-huh.
like, whatever flags were on my record. And, was trying to, sort of make sure that these kids didn't get in too much trouble and take them around the Lincoln Memorial and all those kind of things. It's a lot easier in the committee meetings than it is to be a babysitter for the kids program.
Well, for what it's worth, my kids very much enjoyed it, and they still talk about it to this day that they got to go and they, saw all the cool stuff. So, well, let's transition a little bit about. So that's what Legislative Day is. It's why it's important. Let's talk through some of the current issues that are facing our industry, and kind of what the real focus of this year that the association is interested in taking to legislators. Kind of what are those issues, and maybe talking through some of that.
Yeah, and Donnie, just one more thing on the kids program is I don't know if your kids are choosing their careers based on coming up to Washington, but we've had several of kids that have come repeat years and even join their parents on their Hill visits. So,
Oh, that's cool.
there was a couple of photos from last year's Hill Day luncheon of the kids that came and sat through 6 meetings with their parents, which I just think is incredible to have kids sit through 6 of those meetings and being quiet throughout them. But also, I think, from our team too, I think our team recognizes just how impactful it is to bring those kids. So, Andy, you did a great job with taking those kids to the White House, and we'll just
And
have to
who
keep
wouldn't want
doing
to
that.
become a career politician?
I know we need more of them.
Okay, so I have to tell this story now. You opened it up, Megan, so I have to tell it. So I said my kids do remember, and they absolutely do, but there is one story that they tell every time, and it's not a great one. So I will share the high level version for the podcast. But on that one particular trip, and you may have heard about this, Andy, because it was many years ago. Um, they're all on the bus, and I forgot where they're at, but there were some folks, some homeless folks near there, and one between the bus and another bus decided to do whatever. And the host said, "Don't look on that side of the bus." And if you have a whole bus full of kids, and you say, "Don't do something," what are all the kids going to do? That's what they remember.
I still remember
Nice.
that story, and
You remember? Yeah, instead of my kids are on the
I
bus.
swear to God, we contract with the DNC to rent the buses and get the itineraries. I think we actually have to tell them, or up until a few years ago, I remember being on calls where we kind of told them, "Can you stick to Constitution Avenue and some of the more main roads?" So if somebody is relieving themselves, the bus doesn't tip over because all the
Yes.
kids are looking out one side of the window. So.
Yes. Oh gosh. Anyway, all right. I'm sorry I had to tell the story because that's another
No,
story that gets told every year as well. So
I opened it up for you. I opened it up for you.
So there is one thing in our notes here, and this seems to be a recurring theme each year with the state pesticide preemption.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about where it is, where it's come from, where it's been, and what are the prospects of getting something resolved anytime soon.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you guys all know, this issue has been championed for the past decade by our industry, from talking about it and getting it included in the 2018 House Farm Bill to
Just explain what it is
yeah. So just in basic of terms, the codification of state pesticide preemption really ensures that pesticide regulations remain consistent at the state level and at the federal level, meaning that there's going to be no patchwork of different rules at the local level, whether that's city by city or county by county. So in the majority of our states, 45 out of 50, we have pesticide labeling, registration, and usage rules that are governed solely at the federal and state level. So providing uniformity. So it allows our pest control companies to train technicians properly, complying with one clear regulatory framework, and really confidently serving our customers across multiple jurisdictions.
In years past, so we talked about. Go ahead, Dan.
Go ahead. Hey, I was just gonna say, so I mean, what kind of happened, I guess, going way, way back for anybody who, kind of follows legislation is back in the mid 1990s, there was a Supreme Court case, and the definition of preemption of the Farm Bill says that states may regulate the sale and use of pesticides. So that was challenged because, a state could be a political subdivision of the state was the case they made. And the Supreme Court agreed with that. So the Supreme Court essentially said, every town in every state, if they choose to, they can regulate the sale and use of pesticides, meaning that, if a technician has 10 stops a day, they might not realize what county or what city they're in, and each would have different laws of what products can and can't be applied. So NPMA worked kind of from the mid 90s till early 2000s with the American Legislative Exchange Council. And we were actually able to get laws passed in 45 out of the 50 states that, said only a state and not a political subdivision of a state may regulate it. So that if you're doing business in North Carolina, New Jersey, Florida, you can apply products the same, whether you're in one of the, couple hundred counties. So what we've sort of seen over the last few years is activists' attempts to roll back pesticide preemption. It's California, Colorado, a lot of the northeastern states. So right now, the framework is really good if you don't live in Maine, Maryland, Nevada, or Hawaii. But if you're in any of the other 45 states, Minnesota is kind of a weird one because it's kind of 50% preemption. But 45 states, bulk of the work done in the U.S. is done, based on state laws. But what activists have kind of seen is, hey, we can start trying to roll these things back with, bans on rodenticides, bans on neonics, pyrethroids. So it's not so much that we're trying to get something done that isn't already practiced, but more so protect it so we don't have to fight 45 state battles. But if we could pass it at the federal level, then we never have to worry about rollbacks in the future. And I think that that's kind of the key element of, why I've been working so hard and so long and trying to get it done federally.
So how long has this been going on? I know it's been each year for the past several years, it's been number one. And where is it going? And are you seeing some progress, or is it just all the nonsense that goes on in Washington is like totally overshadowed?
Well, remember last time we talked about this,
Yeah.
it was in the Farm Bill, and it was like, okay, there's a new administration coming in. We think the Farm Bill is going to get passed. And is that kind of still the case, or has it been? I mean, has that been passed? Like, I'm just an update because the last time we did a podcast on this, that's where it was at. It's in the Farm Bill, but there's a new administration coming in, and we don't know what's going to happen. We expect it to get passed.
So, I mean, I think like anything, I don't know what the saying is, around here, but, Washington has all the charm of a northern city and all the efficiency of a southern one. So, I mean, I think, very, very much like people see in the news. I mean, the Farm Bill is supposed to be passed, correct me if I'm wrong, every 5 years. And our language has been included in the House version where the Farm Bill is typically written and then sent over to the Senate. But like everything in Washington, it tends to be gridlocked. So at the end of last September, when it had to be reauthorized, Congress kind of said, yeah, we know we need to do something, but we don't know that we can get the votes to do anything. So they were able to get an agreement to kick the can down the road so that the Farm Bill now expired in September of 2025. So there isn't a Farm Bill that's been reauthorized. I mean, it's kind of in this weird limbo place where, we're trying to figure out, and I think timing is everything, particularly with March and Legislative Day, is, will it be something that comes up for a vote again this year? Or will Congress kind of say, hey, you know what, we can't agree on anything, so we're just going to kick this till September 30th of 2026. But I
Mhm.
think specifically, Megan, you can speak to the markup that happened, I think last week.
No, actually, yeah, I can speak to that. I had wished up until yesterday at about 11 p.m., we were anticipating there to be a markup on a House Farm Bill this week. However, charm of a southern or efficiency of a southern city, they postponed it to the week of March 1st due to weather concerns, which looking out my window, I don't know if I think TBD, maybe they just wanted another week. So they'll be meeting next week to mark up the 2026 Farm Bill. And what's important and what we're pleased to see is that our language was once again included in the base text. So that makes 2018, 2024, now 2026, where we're included in the base text of a farm bill. And really, in our conversations that we've been having with both sides of the Hill, it seems that we have bipartisan support for our provision within the much
So,
larger bill.
so,
So,
so it seems that any PMP can see the issue with this, right? So I'm sending a technician out. He's going to 10 different towns with 10 different rules. That's crazy. What is the argument for? Like, why would anybody oppose this?
I think it's really based on, your perception of pesticides. So you live in Beverly Hills, California, and you have the money to do lots of exclusion work. People in your town might think pesticides are bad, and therefore, Beverly Hills ought to impose restrictions on, whatever the products are that their town council, based on, some really nudging from activist groups say are poison to their communities. So it really is, something that's more emotional than it is scientific. I mean, we, tend to follow the guidance of EPA, and if they say a pesticide is available for registration by the agency, then they've done all the scientific testing to say that it's effective, and they use a formula to determine, whether it has acceptable risk to human health versus, what it is that the pesticide does. So I think it's really emotion that, people are spraying chemicals. We don't know what they are. They're making us sick. I think it's not until you have a pest infestation that you realize, hey, you know what, at the end of the day, do I want to live with rodents, or do I want to push for a ban for all rodenticides? So I think it's really, kind of an emotional case in some of these, more fluent, more liberal cities to say we want to be able to regulate it versus the state of California or any other state having the ability to regulate it.
And
and
I
I
think
think,
that's an important point is that, ultimately, use an emotion on making decisions is human. Make an emotion to make a decision or use an emotion to make a decision on public health that's going to affect people outside of even that community, I think is a big deal. And I think it's one of the reasons that, obviously there's the part of a company who has to keep up with, just the idea of I'm in 7 different counties or 7 different cities. I've got 7 different sets of regulations that I got to comply with. That's obviously impossible. But from a broader perspective, it seems like to me this would be an easy sell to both sides because the idea that you're gonna have half-baked science or people making decisions about public health who may not know or even care about all of the facts of what that means. And so to me, it's a huge, it's an easy win, is I guess my point. So Megan, you're going to say something before I popped in there. Weren't you?
no, you did it. You covered it perfectly. I think the other piece of this that we've, been able to have conversations about is, state pesticide preemption doesn't restrict the local governments from deciding what they're using on their own property. It just ensures that as a homeowner or as a business, you can make a decision on what's best for you and your pest infestation. So they can still clearly make a choice when it comes to selecting pest control services. You said this too, like pests don't respect or understand boundary lines with
Mhm.
municipalities. So it's not like, a pest infestation is going to stop at the city limits and say, oh, well, we're not allowed there.
Right,
So is
right.
there, EPA spends a ton of money on testing and getting all of this information. So when there is a reg or a law that's passed that's contrary to the label from a town, is there any requirement that there is scientific testing or anything, or is it just a gang mentality of coming in and, who's got the loudest voice?
It's the latter. It's the gang mentality. So, I mean, we've seen, rollbacks where people dress up in bee suits and stand out front of the state capitol and, say, hey,
We've seen that
neonation
at Pest World.
bees. Yeah, Pest World. I'm telling you, I promise you, I'm not one wearing the bee suit. But I mean, it's very emotional. It's people with big pictures of, raptors or eagles or bobcats, saying that rodenticides are killing our wildlife. And there's no scientific evidence to be able to say that, rodenticide that was used near a structure was eaten by a rat that was then eaten by, a predator, and the predator got confused and walked out into the 101 kind of thing. So I think it's very emotional. There's no state data that we've seen when fighting this preemption rollbacks that say, yes, these pesticides are causing these problems. I think it's very much, get latched into, it's poison for our community or poison for our wildlife, and we don't care what EPA says, but we know better, and we think that we ought to ban it in our town.
So, switching gears, are there other issues that are non-pesticide related? I know that in the past we've attacked things like overtime and 7I and things like that. What are some of the things that from a business perspective, non-pesticide related, that you're looking at?
Yeah, so since we'll be taking folks to the Hill 2 weeks after markup, if markup truly is next week now, we are going to be focusing primarily on state pesticide preemption, but we do have a couple other issue papers that we've got for folks that might be visiting with a member that sits on either banking or financial services. We've got a resource for them to talk about the Credit Card Competition Act. Really trying to drive more of a competition with those rates and those swipe fees that we're seeing instead of having that 2 to 4% from two providers, allowing us to have other alternatives to choose from, making it more competitive. And hopefully, should that become law, we see a lower fee price or for the swipes.
I like that.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to jump in or keep going, Dan. We got to have the raise hand function here. That should be something we have.
I know.
We're all going to jump in.
This is Donnie's world. We just live in it.
Yes.
So,
as long as we got that understanding. Anyway, go ahead.
It's Donnie's world. So the other one is just a wildlife services competition. So a couple of our folks that will be attending Hill Day are also involved in the wildlife control space. So making sure that congressional offices are aware of any competition issues that we're seeing in the states between private control companies and perhaps USDA wildlife services and being able to address that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I want to, so we're getting towards the end here, and I just want to make sure that, for those that are thinking about coming to Legislative Day or maybe on the fence, we've been talking about obviously these issues and the idea of being able to get in front of your legislator. Is there, for those that absolutely cannot make it, how would you guys recommend or encourage them to get involved at home or even locally to have an impact? Because I personally believe, legislation is probably one of the biggest risks to our industry. And when we don't have a voice and we don't have data, and I'm not sure if you guys did any of you guys go to the North Carolina Pest Management Association? Dr. Quinn was there she works at University, and she said something that really struck me. She goes, the biggest issue that we have is data. When these claims are made, like the secondary poisoning with rodenticides, it's like, we just don't have the data to back up. Like that's impossible. We've just never even thought to have it. But I'm just curious, like for folks that are home, what are some things that they can do locally, or even for the state that can help, PMPs and with legislation?
May I say the first thing for sure is legislators, whether they're, congressional legislators or even, legislators in your state, they love a photo op. So, I mean, if you reach out to, your local legislators and say, hey, I'm Donnie Shelton, I own Triangle Pest Control, would love for you to just come visit our office and you can get, a bunch of text, do a quick breakfast, let them talk about what's important to them and snap a couple pictures. I mean, it kind of demonstrates to them that, hey, I'm talking with, business leaders, I'm getting in front of voters in the state. And I think it's just a nice way to start a relationship. I mean, it's like any relationship, it takes time to build it, but if there's ways to send notes, after each election, hey, welcome to office. If you ever have a question about pest control, if it's something that comes up, don't hesitate to contact me or get in touch with the North Carolina Pest Management Association. So I think it's trying to position yourself as an expert, as people that vote for these folks, demonstrating that, hey, I own a business, here's the economic impact to my community. Here's the good things that we do as public health protectors. I think really is, a nice way that our industry can get in front of folks, more so at a local level, even than visiting the offices in DC.
By the way, Andy, what you just said was pure gold. And I mean that. For those that are listening, I could not agree more. Boiling everything down to what he just said is all about having a relationship. I mean, if you can put yourself in the seat of a legislator, they have so many decisions to make, especially on things that they don't fully understand. And if there's no relationship from your industry, but there is a relationship kind of on the counterpoint, then, and that's who gets their ear, right? And that's who they go to for their data. It really strategically puts our industry at a disadvantage. And so that's such a great point, such a great point. So Megan, anything to add here before we close out?
Man, I mean, I think Andy just took anything that I was going to say there, but I think, a lot of that is, that personal outreach from members. But I also think, ways that you can amplify what you're doing is looking at what the state association or what national is doing when it comes to advocacy and answering those calls, whether it's something at the state level and, thanking a member for voting a certain way, or if it's nationals, asking you to complete a grassroots. Those are easy ways to continue your advocacy throughout the year.
So if you want to come get on the NPMA website, right? I'm going to guess that the hotel's probably sold out by now, but there's plenty of hotels. There's one across the street. There's two across the street that we've stayed at. So there's plenty of places to stay. But I think 420 people, that's a good turnout this year. So
yeah, that's a lot. And as a reminder, anybody listening, I mean, it's March 15th through 17th this year. So if you, haven't made arrangements, if, kind of like Donnie said, you might be on the fence, I think that this is a really critical year to be in attendance. I mean, I think if the Farm Bill is really being marked up, in the next week, that it'll be a kind of pivotal time to be there. And, even though it's the same issue, it's not always the same people. So there's new people that, have been elected to office. There's new staff members that, might not have met with the industry last year. So if you kind of see, hey, I lobbied this issue now, last year or in prior years, I think that, what we're hopeful is this is the year that we'll be able to push it over the finish line. And I think it's going to really take a concerted industry effort to get there. So I'd really encourage, if you're available, please attend, and look forward to seeing you in DC.
I would also tell you that the best of the best in the industry are there. And if you're new to the industry, or you really haven't had much exposure to some of the best, it's a great networking opportunity. It really is. So
and I was going to say, Andy and Megan, I really appreciate you guys coming on to the podcast. I think it's been a great episode, especially for those who are interested in Legislative Day and just really the overall topic of how important it is to be involved in legislative issues. And so appreciate what you're doing at the association, and love to have you back, and we can hear all about Dan and his legislative issues as well. So maybe you're back. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, D Squared.
Yes, thank you.
By the way, that's what Marisa, our producer, she calls us D Squared. So
yeah, it's so funny. All right. Just a reminder, all the resources and topics that we talked about today are going to be available on the podcast website. Just take a look at pnpindustryinsider.com. Take a look under show notes. We'll link up the Legislative Day as well as a few links to NPMA. And as always, we appreciate any ratings and reviews for the show, so long as they're positive. And if they're not, we ask that you pass all negativity to Dan. He really likes that. With that, we're signing off. We'll see you next time.
thank you.
Bye-bye now.